Hello, good evening. How are you and how has been your evening? How has been the weekend? You're welcome to Parent School Partnership with Vivian Davids. And today we'll be looking at something very interesting. But why Parent School Partnership? Why is Parent School Partnership important? Parent School Partnership is important because home and school need to come together for the well-being of the child. Home and school need to come together for the well-being of the child, for the progress of the child. When school and home work together effectively, we see better outcome for children. So we need to work together with school. So today we're looking at mental health of children, as in mental health of those who work with children, mental health of teachers, mental health of parents, and how that can impact. How can it impact on the well-being of the child? How can it impact on the well-being of the child? You need to be strong, you need to be healthy to be able to support a child. Look at a vehicle. If the driver is not very good at driving, how will he take the passenger to the destination? So today I'll be joined by somebody very, very important. Actually, she's been a friend and is a long-lasting relationship. I have with me Chidima Abia Kalam. She's going to be joining me to discuss this topic today. Hi, Chido.
Hello,
How are you?
Vivi. I'm fine, thank
Good to
you.
see you.
It's
I
so
was
good
just
to be
talking
here.
absolutely same here. Same here. I was talking to our audience and I said that this
Okay.
relationship is a relationship of over 35 years, actually, not 30
In
years.
fact,
About 13.
since we should get an award for long-lasting relationship things. Yes.
Yeah. So I know Chidima has been into a lot over the years, and I had to post on our platforms her profile. If you go to the Parent School Partnership page, you will see her profile, and it is a long one, it's a long read. But I'm just going to give you a brief, yeah, because I'm going to give you a brief information about her. She is a Richmond graduate, university certified community mental health facilitator. She has extensive experience training and counseling students, parents, and teachers. I also know she's a Montessori consultant and she has worked with young children and she has trained teachers who do work with these children. Chidima, you're welcome,
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank
Good
you
to
so
have
much.
you.
Thank you, Vivian. And you look gorgeous.
Oh, you too. So
Thank you.
when some weeks back, I was actually putting a post on the Tiana platform, and I wrote about
Okay.
teachers' burnout and how that the stress level of teachers and carers of young children affects, their total well-being. That attracted a lot of
Mhm.
attention, and then we looked at it, and people were like, "Okay, come back in." But I waited for today. This week is actually um, the Children Mental Health Week, and I said that we could talk about this. Let's talk about the mental health of
Vivian,
those
you're
who work
freezing.
with
Okay.
children. The mental health that can affect, how that can affect the children. We need to be healthy to take care of the children. What exactly is mental
Exactly.
health? People have different myths and misconceptions about mental health. You are the practitioner. How exactly is mental health?
Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope
Can
the
you
internet gets better on your
just
end. I just hope it does.
tell
Okay, so
us
mental health is,
in
funnily enough, when people hear, I don't know if you can hear me, Vivi. Are you there?
yeah. Yes, I can.
Okay. So
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
when people hear mental health, for some reason they just think mental illness. So you hear people say things like, ah, that person has mental health. Mental health does not mean mental illness. Mental health, we're just talking about the both the psychological and emotional well-being of a person. So if you look at the human person, we have the physical angle of the person, we have the emotional angle, we have the mental angle. So when we talk about mental health, we are talking about the wellness as it has to do with the physical, the psychological, and emotional aspects of this person, and where the person can function well in the society, in their personal lives. And when we say someone is mentally healthy, we are talking about as it affects how they think, how they behave, their work, and their relationships. So that's what mental health means. And we cannot say that someone is exactly healthy if their mental health is not healthy. So most times we always put emphasis on the physical health of people. So we look at, do I have malaria? Do I have diabetes? Do I have high blood pressure? If I don't have those things, automatically it means I am healthy. And then when it has to do with mental health, so we say, do I have schizophrenia? No. Do I have bipolar? No. It means I am mentally healthy. So the absence of mental illness does not necessarily equate to mental health. So mental health is just when psychologically, emotionally, the person can function well and is okay. Yeah.
You see, it's very true. Look at thank you, Holly, Elisa, Bruno, for joining us. Holly here is saying that in USA, the majority of them experience trauma as children. Can you imagine
Mm.
that they experience trauma as children? And to
Mhm.
love children, we may learn to love and care for ourselves first and always.
Mm.
Yes, to be able to love
Mhm.
children, we need to learn, to take care of ourselves, to love ourselves,
Exactly.
and take care of our
Mhm.
well-being. So
Mhm.
how can we take care of it? What are the causes of mental health in adults?
How
What are
can
the
we, sorry,
signs?
I
What can
didn't
we
get that.
say?
Okay, the
No, what are the
signs.
causes?
Okay,
What are the
so
likely causes? The
of
causes.
mental illnesses. Okay, so first
Yes,
of all, I have to
in
start by
adults.
saying that in an adult. So let me even start by
Mhm.
saying when we hear mental illness, it's not something that should scare us, or then somebody shuts up and say, okay, this is not for me. I cannot be mentally ill. Mental illness is for that guy on the street who eats from the dustbin. So that is not mental illness. Mental illness varies in degrees and types. There are so many types of mental illnesses, and then there are common mental illnesses. So when we talk about the causes of mental illness, first of all, we can even start by saying there are mental illnesses that are genetic, hereditary. Just the way I am dark
Mm.
complexion, my dad is dark, my mom is dark, so it means I am dark. So the kind of nose I have is definitely coming from either one of my parents. So that's some mental illnesses, are genetically transferred. Then you have the social causes of mental illness. When someone has been through like war or hard time, or even losing a loved one. So those things the pressures, the stresses of life, and even the way people perceive these stresses can cause mental illnesses. So if we are linking it to the teachers, sometimes even generally, even as a parent or as a child, stress, pressure, traumatic experiences can make people have mental illness. Just the way, Vivi, if you expose yourself to a room where there are mosquitoes without mosquito nets, and
Mm-hmm.
mosquitoes bite you are going to have malaria. So there are certain things we may
Mm-hmm.
expose ourselves to that can affect our mental health, and then people become mentally ill. I don't know if you understand that. So those are the
Yes,
causes.
yes,
Then
yes.
we ask ourselves, okay, so how can I tell? once we have debunked the myth that mental illness is only for that mad person, just like some of our Nollywood movies try to portray. So when we hear the word mental, most people just start saying, "I'm not mad," but mental just has to do with the mind. So some of the symptoms we just see that can give us like, man, this is something I should be paying attention to. As simple as something like sleep. So for some people, they begin to sleep a lot. They don't want to get out of bed. Then for some, they have insomnia. They don't even sleep again. So you see some people say to you, no matter how tired I am, I can't sleep anymore. Then even things like
Wow.
eating. So some people, one of the signs is this, the appetite goes. They no longer want to eat. Then, or for some people, they now begin to eat. So you see overweight or underweight. Then the next thing you see them do, they begin to isolate from every social connection. They begin to withdraw. You see such a person, they are no longer interested in the things they used to enjoy. So if they enjoyed hanging out with friends or going to places, gradually you see them withdraw. And for those of us who are mental health practitioners, we can even tell from social media when someone may be going through maybe a form of mental illness. So
Mental.
sometimes yes, their DP, they could just put black. They just put up something black, or they just put scribbles. Then another thing is when
Mm.
someone always has negative thoughts, self-criticism. So if you're always there where you're feeling like, in fact, there is nothing in this life. This world is just hopeless. I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not a good person. I'm not good at anything. There is nothing I do. I'm lonely. I don't have friends. So all those self-criticism kind of talk that makes people on a normal day, they don't even want to function. So it begins to affect their relationships, their work, their lives. And so those are just some of the common symptoms people can see. And they know that things something is not okay, something is not adding up. So these are some of the symptoms we can just point at. Yes.
Yeah, can we look at some of the stressors in our environment that can impact on our
Hmm.
mental health? I was reading a research not too long ago,
Mm,
and they say
mhm,
teachers face a lot of stress, and they talked about teachers of young children because of the
mm,
the low pay of
mm,
young teachers. That make them, there's a lot of calculation, a lot of bills to pay, and what is coming in is not commensurate to what they need to take care of. So it becomes like a huge stress on them, and that can also
yeah.
impact on their mental health. Do you agree that stresses like that can have an impact on mental health?
Yes, definitely. And the truth about life is there is the reality and there is the perception. And the fact is, what can affect mental health is when you look at your life, you have the expectations you have of your life, and you have the reality. So this is not just me saying to myself, oh, I want a good life. There are bills I have to pay. There are things to be done. There is the house rent, there is the school fees. So it's not just wishful
Mhm.
thinking. And of course, we know how things have been in this part of the world, worsened especially by the pandemic. So you have the classroom teacher who, on a normal average day, the pay is not commensurate with the bills. So this is a classroom teacher having to work long hours. And the reason for we are seeing increasingly the fact that teachers work long hours. Back in the days, how a child who is properly trained, in quotes. So the question is always, is your mom a teacher? And that question is coming from the angle that, one, your mom is educated, and your mom has time. So when they say, is your mom a teacher? Your mom has time. Like 3 o'clock, your mom is already home to help you with homework and help you with other things. But those days are practically
I
gone.
know.
They are no longer there anymore. So those days of
Gone.
your mom is just gone. And that is because life is evolving. So you have more women at the marketplace right now, unlike when we were much younger. So we had mothers who were majorly traders or stay-at-home moms or then teachers.
Absolutely.
But now
Very true.
you have women in the marketplace. So the increasing time you have women play in the
Yes.
marketplace, be in the banking industry and all kinds of profession, they are further taken away from home. So what is the
Mm-hmm.
impact when the women have been taken away from home for longer hours? They rely on the school to do the job.
You did the
And
job.
now do the job. So if I have a job that keeps me in the office till 7 o'clock, where do you think my expectations would be? I want the school to keep my children at least for longer hours, shortening the time they will have to stay with the babysitter at home. So my expectation pushes down to the school. And now what we have seen is also a shift from the public sector. Like Vivi, you and I, we went to public schools. It was a norm in our in
Exactly.
our own time to go to
Mm-hmm.
a public school. But now what do we have? We have the private establishments that have been set up, and to a large extent as a result of government failure in our public schools. So to close the gap of giving quality education, we have the private schools spring up. And for goodness sake, as much as the private school owners may have good intentions, but this is business at the end of the day. These parents pay to have their children in the school. And once parents are paying a lot to have their children in school, expectations increase. And when the expectations increase from the school, what happens? It goes down, it trickles down to the classroom teacher. So the expectations go down to the classroom teacher. So you have the classroom teacher staying longer hours in school, traveling a distance, going through traffic to come to work and stay with children whose parents are going to be leaving them all the expectations. So the expectations are heightened. And then these teachers have to do all these things. These things can create huge stress for this teacher. So there is that stress that comes from commuting because the pay is not big. Oftentimes, teachers live far away from where they work because they have to live in places where they can manage to pay for the rent and work in places where they can manage to get some pay. So they have to do commutes. If it's a place like Lagos where you have high traffic, so they do this commuting, they're already exhausted. So a physically
Absolutely.
exhausted teacher is a mentally exhausted teacher. So you see these teachers, they come into the classroom, they are already running on a short fuse. They're already irritable. I'm talking about the average teacher. I'm not talking about the head of school. So they're already running on a short fuse. And you see children who, to a large extent, have been dropped also by parents who are running on short fuse. So there is pressure every corner. The pressure from the parents have been transferred to the children. So what you see averagely in the morning, angry mothers who are honking their cars like, get out of the way, I have to drop this child in school so that I can be in the office. So they are dropping the children are already getting the impacts, and the teachers are already seeing angry parents dropping their kids. Then in the classroom, the children are already hyperactive in their energy. So the teacher has to absorb this thing. And with all these long hours, what does she take home? She's looking at her pay, she's looking at her efforts, and it's like they're not matching. So the teacher is already feeling a sense of detachment, disillusionment. So every expectation she has for herself, her life, it's almost like she's he or she is not meeting up, and those things can affect mental health. So we are looking at expectation, perception, because there is a perception the individual has, and we're still tying it to reality. So all these things can actually affect the mental health. And then if the teacher is not mentally healthy, the impact is in the classroom. So it
Very
shows
true.
in the work. And yes.
Now, you mentioned something very important, and sometimes we tend to look
Mm,
away from them. Children who have been left in
mm.
school for long hours, long
Oh,
hours.
wow.
Yes, sometimes parents
Yes.
even forget their children at school,
Yes.
and they leave them to
Yes.
to be cared, you know, to be taken care of by their teachers. Now, I know this impact. We talk about how this impacts on the teacher, and becoming a stress, and the teacher is stressed out, can affect her mental well-being. I am also looking
Mhm,
at the conversation brought up here by Holly. Holly says that in the USA, a lot of children, have had trauma growing up. What are some of the
mm.
traumas that children can have? That and if children do have this mental health issues, as in, can it impact on them as adults?
Okay, so first of all, I want to still debunk that myth where people think that children cannot be mentally ill. So Holly is in the
Mm-hmm.
US, and I'm sure she's in a place where maybe mental health issues have been talked about on and handled to a large extent. Now, right now in Nigeria, it seems to be like a buzzword, but a lot of people are still new. We did surprise you, Vivi. Sometime last year, a research was done in Lagos
Okay.
about how
Okay.
people saw mental health, and this research is not it was not carried out for the ignorant woman who is uneducated or the person. This is among educated. And would it shock you
Hmm.
that a lot of people attributed mental illness to spiritual problems, as in educated? Yes. Maybe spiritual problems, village people and all. You know the way we laugh about village people things.
Yeah,
It
village
when
people.
you have conversations with people. So a lot of people say to me, Chidima, beg, leave this thing. Are village people. They are real. So if you have if you have a parent who thinks like that, it becomes a problem if you're a school owner or a teacher to address that, or you have a teacher who believes that. So to a large extent, people still in that space where they don't believe that children can be mentally ill. Last year, I had to go. I was invited to talk to a group of teenagers, and it was part of their problem. So parents say to the young person, "What is wrong with you? Are you paying house rent? Are you paying school fees? So what can be the problem?" So, but children can be mentally ill. Like I said, we have the genetic one. If they are predisposed to be mentally ill, certain things can trigger. Now, children can have traumatic experiences that can follow them if
Absolutely,
left
very true.
untreated into adulthood. You know the truth, let me say
Mm-hmm.
it the way it is. Like I say to people, the reason why I am so
Say,
passionate about children and the child is
mm-hmm.
because the adult you are seeing today is a product of what happened in
Of a
childhood.
child of yesterday. Exactly.
Yes. So the child you are molding today or you are seeing will become the adult tomorrow. So if you are raising a child who is going to end up timid, based on what you are doing. So it's like building a house. You have plans that you're going to have fine roofs, windows, and everything, but the foundation is a problem. So most times children have traumas. For instance, unfortunately, we have not stopped to ask ourselves, children who lose their parents to death, we
Hmm.
just say,
Very
don't
true.
worry, time
Very true.
heals all wounds.
Yes, yes,
But that's
yes.
not true. Time does not heal all wounds. Things don't just heal because it has taken time. You have to address certain things. You don't just leave something and say time heals all wounds. So a child
Very
loses a parent, a loved one, and we just leave the child. Nobody's asking, how has this loss affected the mental health of this child? So the child grows into an adult responding to that loss in different ways. Some of them become very narcissistic, some of them become angry adults, some of them become very withdrawn. Some of them they begin to have what we call attachment problems. So you see wives
true.
complaining, my husband is not loving, my husband cannot do this. You see husband saying, my wife is so frigid, my wife is so this. To a large extent, it's coming from childhood. So you see those things like the child shuts off. I don't want to feel this pain again. So they create a wall. Then even
Hmm.
divorce. Divorce
Hmm.
affects children. But have you observed
Wow.
that even in this part of the world, when parents are divorcing, it's just a case of their children, what do they know? So nobody's paying attention to the child. I have had adults who say to me, you see, when it has to do with marriage, I'm not going there. Or when I get into marriage, I am going to. There was a lady who said to me, I will start the trouble before I am giving trouble. So so as funny or weird as it may sound, it's coming from a traumatic or traumatizing experience. Then even what about when parents quarrel and fight at home? It is trauma for the
Yes.
children. I have
For the child,
cases
yeah,
where
for the
I've
children who are
had
watching.
adults who are watching. In fact, I know someone who told me he became an adult who started having, the doctor said, you are going to have ulcer. He started having a psychological problem around his throat. So for the longest time, he felt it was a physical problem. The doctor said,
Hmm.
what kind of family did you grow up in? Now, this person grew up in a
Dysfunctional.
family where parents fought. He told me that sometimes the parents could be laughing and the next thing they are fighting. So he grew up in that tensed environment. So even when they are laughing, he's already tensed. So even when he's sleeping, he's already tense, waiting for fight. So children that grow up in that environment, we wonder why we see a lot of adults behave the way they behave. Most times it's coming from the trauma that was just left, not handling them. Then have we asked ourselves, children that are in the IDP camps, what kind of children are they
Hmm.
going? What kind of adults will they be?
Would they
Those
become? What
children
kind
in
of
the
adult would
IDP
they
camps.
become? Absolutely.
What kind of adults will they become? So we just assume that
Absolutely.
because they have become grown men with biceps and women, that the way for those of us who are Christians, we say all things are passed away. It doesn't
Hmm.
work that way. So all those experiences are forming the adults. I see children here in Lagos begging in traffic lights. When you have those junction roundabouts where you have the traffic light, you see little girls and boys begging. They come to your window. They are seeing their fellow children in your car going to school. So we are sitting in our cars. Maybe because I'm a mental health experiences they had as children that were left untreated.
You
So those
see?
are the traumas.
It's,
Yeah, that children. And sorry, let me add this. Vivi, some children, their trauma is not home. Their trauma is the school. Bullying that comes from other
it's
children.
the
And bullying
school.
that,
Yeah.
yes, bullying that comes from other children and bullying that comes from the teacher. So let's still not
Bullying.
leave that. Yes. So some teachers, you have adults who
Very
still
true.
remember
Very true. Very true. Wow. We seem to have lost. Let's. I would just recap some of the things that Chidima has said. But before we go on, I'm going to play. We're going to. We'll come back to you. Very short break.
Teachers play a huge role in shaping children's lives, academically, socially, and emotionally. But teaching is known as one of the most stressful occupations. And this high stress is causing teachers to burn out, disengage, and become dissatisfied with their jobs and cause more turnover than ever. Studies estimate that between 30 and 40% of teachers will leave the profession by their 5th year. Teacher stress and turnover hurt students, schools, and communities, resulting in problems such as low student achievement in math and language arts, disrupted relationships between teachers, students, and parents, and costs to the system that exceed $7.3 billion a year. So what causes teacher stress in the first place? Many teachers are reporting that job satisfaction is at an all-time low. The pressure of high-stakes testing and managing difficult students have dramatically increased the cognitive and emotional demands of teachers, leaving them feeling overwhelmed. Teachers cite they often lack effective, inclusive leadership, and they feel powerless because they don't have much say in how the school is run. But there is hope. Some changes are being introduced that have been proven to help teachers. Mindfulness programs can help teachers manage emotions and find joy in teaching. Mentoring programs can help new teachers reduce stress and raise retention, which improves classroom instruction. Workplace wellness programs can improve teacher health, lower medical costs, and reduce absenteeism. Social and emotional learning programs for students can reduce teacher burnout and increase their satisfaction. Unfortunately, not enough schools offer these scientifically proven programs. It's time for school, district, state, and federal leaders to work toward healthier school environments for all children. This requires organizational change, not only to protect the well-being of teachers, but also to improve educational outcomes for students. To learn more, visit us online.
Yeah, so you got that. And you can see that this is a general problem. It's not just here. It's a general problem all over the place. And, we're glad to have you, Chidema, still with me. And so, Chidema, you see, in the video we just watched now, there's a workplace wellness program can support teachers, workplace wellness program. But then you say that sometimes some teachers, their problems and their difficulties, the stress that they face come exactly from where they should be getting the wellness program from the school.
Yes.
Sometimes you see that some of them, employers are very hard on them. I don't know if you've seen some schools where the employer shows up and the teachers are like running and they're like hiding. A school
Yes.
is meant to be a calm, lovely, fun place.
Yes.
But then some employers make it like, they're so tough. I don't know what they're trying to achieve by being so tough with the teachers. And you see that teachers pretend, some teachers when they get into the school gates, their hearts start panting, like it's like a tug of war, another war zone.
Yeah.
Why should that be? How can employers support their employees? How can employers support their employees at the workplace?
I can't
Look at
hear
this
you again,
wellness
Vivi.
program. Oh, you can't
I
hear
can't hear
me.
you. You
Hello?
can hear me.
Okay.
I've lost sound from here. Let me quickly
All right.
leave and then come.
All right. We need to know, okay, we can't have a wellness program when teachers have a lot of issues at the workplace. Where will a teacher be running on seeing his or her employer? Why? Why have you made yourself a tyrant that teachers will run seeing you? That is a problem. That is a huge stress on that teacher. And that can impact on the teacher's mental well-being, So adults can be bullies too, Adults can be, that makes you a bully because a workplace where a teacher spends over 8 hours, 9 hours, as the case may be, should be a place of fun, a place where they should be relaxed and enjoy, and to support the children to also enjoy and achieve. So why should that be? So Chidima, how can employers, help us make this better? How can they support their staff?
Okay, so in fact, okay, I'm so
Please
sorry
go ahead.
about
It's
about the
okay.
network going back and forth. Okay, so
It's
see, there are
okay.
there are there are different factors I see that play a role. Because I work a lot with schools and I train teachers, I have seen so many things in the course of my work. In fact, Vivi, there was a particular school where I went to train, and it shocked me what was going on there. You know, when they say teachers had absolutely no sense of self-esteem. So
Wow.
as the owner of the school shows up, they stand
Mm-hmm.
up. They are
Wow.
panting. Yes, they stand up. You know the way we did in primary school when our teacher comes and we hit our hands. Good morning, teacher. We
Morning.
are happy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I am telling you, this is a big private school. So I'm not talking about a rundown public school or a private school, a big private school. And there was a particular time that one of the teachers had her hands full and didn't stand up. And then this head of school and this owner of school went, "Oh, you are now so big to stand up when I show up." So can you
Like
imagine
seriously?
the yes, the mental health, the state of the teachers there? It's terrible. So what I think is playing out here is culture. There is a there is a place of culture. You know, we are in a place where number one, the culture suggests that if I am high, then you are subservient. So if I am older
Mm.
and you are younger, everything I say is correct and you have to echo. You have no
Mm.
right to
Mm.
question me. And that is why in our culture, if you notice, children are raised. If your parent is talking to you and you are looking at your parents in the eye, you get spanked.
You say,
You are
why are you looking at
scolded.
me? Put your
Why are
eyes
you
down.
looking at me? Come on, put your eyes down. So that is the culture
Put
where we're coming
your
from.
eyes
And so,
down.
because we are coming from that culture, a lot of us are timid. Our culture is a culture that suggests most of us in our culture, traditionally, there is the king and there are the subjects. So we carry this
Absolutely.
culture into every sphere of life. We see it in our
Life.
churches, in our religious institutions. So in a particular culture where you have the Oba, and everybody obeys the Oba. So we see that culture, it is just taken into the spiritual sphere. So there is the pastor and there is the laity. So when the pastor says something, it becomes almost like a taboo to challenge or to question. And we now move that same culture, even though subtly, into the workplace. And that is where, in a place like our environment, there is a lot of abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse from the boss to the worker. So there was a
Mm.
particular bank I heard that this Oga at the top would even say to the workers, "Are you stupid? Are you crazy?" In fact, he likened and said to one of the workers, "See, let me tell you, in this bank, we are not teachers. Our reward is not in heaven." Yes, that here our reward is on earth, you work. So if you want to do reward in heaven, go to a school. So you see that kind of abuse where you see grown adults shaking because of a boss. And where do you think we are always products of what we have learned? We, we,
What you
we
have
do by the
learned.
things we have learned. So that person that has been trampled upon, you know that it is said that the abuser becomes the abused becomes the
Abuse
abuser.
become the abuser.
So most times you see those girls that were what do you call it, trafficked into prostitution, they end up becoming kingpins. They end up
Mm.
becoming the kingpins that bring other girls to traffic them. So it becomes
Very
a
true.
cycle. So you see that school owner, most of them will brag and say to you, "When I was a teacher, they did XYZ." You know the way it was in secondary school, that when you
Exactly.
are a junior and they punished you, you can't wait for when you become a senior to begin to punish. As simple as that example may seem, that is what we have, taken into the workplace. And you have all kinds of people. I attended an event recently, and someone said to me that every time she gets an email at work, her heart begins to beat. She has sweaty palms.
Wow.
She can't breathe. She's shaking. And I told her that is what you call panic attack. So where is it coming from?
Panic
She had a
attack.
boss. Yes, she had a boss that will use email and say to her, you are good for nothing. I regret hiring you into this team. You are just a fool. Look at the nonsense
What
you
kind of
did. Even my 10-year-old can
emotional
do better.
abuse is that?
So, and who is she reporting to? Nobody. So she sucks it in. Even if she tells a friend, they will say to her, you're not the first person, so deal with it. But that thing that happens to her is what you call panic attack. It's under anxiety disorder. So you have a lot of our teachers going through this
Anxiety
thing
disorder.
yes, in the hands of school owners. So the school owners come, as long as they are the boss man, they can talk to them anyhow, shred them in front of visitors. Sometimes I go to school to see clients, and the school owner is washing down a teacher in front of me. And the teacher is standing there, head bowed, embarrassed, ashamed. What do you think is her mental health? So she's going to take her anger back home. Maybe if she has children or a
Yeah.
spouse, they are going to get the backlash. So, and these school owners, aside the fact that they want to be boss man, another thing playing a role is parents are putting pressure. You know that
On
thing they say,
them.
when two elephants fight, the grass suffers.
The grass suffers. I
So
see.
who is the
That's
grass
true.
here? Yes. So the
I
parents are putting
see.
pressure. So the parents feel like, see, I have paid you. I was in a meeting once and a parent says, my 8-year-old does not greet me in the morning. I don't know what you teachers are doing. Yes, Vivi. And I was shocked. So after the meeting, I said to her, I said, don't you think they say charity begins at home? There are things. She said, no, no, no. Chidima, if you have
At
time to
all.
teach your
Yes.
children to greet, she said to me, if you have time to teach your children to greet, I do not have the time. And that is why I paid the school. So if my child is not greeting me in the morning, I will hold the school responsible that my child is not greeting. And in that meeting, the school owner kept apologizing. Okay, I know the children should learn from home. I know you are busy. We will do our best.
Can
Why do you
you
think she was
imagine that?
so why do you think she was
She just wants to
apologizing?
keep her quiet.
Thank you.
Wow.
So you see the
You
cycle.
see,
So who is going to get the brunt? Who is going to get the
the
heat that the child
teachers.
is not
Very
greeting? The
true.
teacher. The teacher gets the heat. So the owner of the school, this is business. My investment cannot go down. And you, teacher, I will not let you make my investment go down. So, and because of the unemployment rates in our country, the owner can show you
All
the
the
door. And
children.
by the next morning, there is a
Somebody
replacement.
else has taken over you.
Exactly. So all these pressures are coming. The teachers are having anxiety disorder, depression. There was a school
Depression.
I trained. The head of
Depression.
not yes, the head of nursery committed suicide.
Hmm. Can you
That was in
imagine that?
2 years ago. The head of nursery. I had trained the school, and the head of nursery, I was called. And by the time I started asking questions, the red flags were there. So there is, I'm not just blaming the school for the fact that the woman committed suicide, but based on the question you have asked, how can we make the school a place where there is wellness? Because at the end of the day, Vivi, like I tell teachers, where you spend most of your time is where most of your life is. Most
Exactly.
teachers, yes, your workplace is where you spend most of your time than you even spend at home. And we're looking at time here from active time. We're not looking at the time where you're sleeping. So the argument of, but at home I spend 12 hours. How many of those hours are your active hours? So most of our active hours are spent in school where we work. So if I work in a school where I am grossly unhappy, I am constantly anxious and on edge and irritable and depressed, that is my life. That is just what it means.
Hmm.
So as school owners, first of all, it should start with a change of attitude. school owners themselves should understand the importance of mental wellness for their teachers. If indeed they are concerned about the children they claim they love, then it should be important to them that their teachers are in that place mentally where they can handle these children. So there is that place for school owners and teachers to understand mental health. Parents themselves should understand how some of these unrealistic expectations on the school can put pressure, and then it backfires on the child, your child. It becomes counterproductive
Your child later,
because
yes, it does.
it becomes counterproductive because if the teacher who takes my child, if I am here feeling very cool as a parent and saying I don't want to
Very
take
true.
nonsense from my school, and the teachers who take my children are constantly under pressure, are unhappy, are depressed and anxious, how do you think it's going to affect my child? Of course, my children are not going to get the best out of that teacher. So who suffers at the end is the child. So in an indirect way, it trickles down to the child. So if we can create an environment where there is psychological safety, when we say psychological safety, it means an environment where people are free not to make, as in they are free to make mistakes and not be afraid. They are free to be
And not be
themselves.
afraid.
They are free to
Exactly.
be themselves, to make
Exactly.
suggestions without the fear of rejection or the fear of being ridiculed or the fear of being punished. If we can create that kind of environment, it will help us. And if there is any school owner
Very
here
true.
listening, or any boss man or boss woman, it's still important for us to know that our self-esteem, our being bosses does not come from the fact that the people we lead are shaking when we come in. It should come from
Very
the
true.
influence, the impact we make on these people. Because a lot of people will tell you that, see, if you are not boss man and you don't shout at them, they will not respect you. So if we can, if
That
we
is it.
can,
That's just some ideas. Yes, and
yes.
that is what's
So
happening in some schools. If you're not the
mm,
boss man, if you're not shouting, and if you're not being so hard, and so
mhm,
you tend not to get that respect. And do you understand that?
yes.
That is how that culture thing you spoke about. That is also where it
Mm,
stems from.
yeah.
And I would like us before our time is gradually coming to
Mhm.
almost gone. Can't believe it. But then before we come to the parents,
Mm,
the teachers, let's just wrap it up with teachers. Now, if you're a school owner
okay.
listening, please, your
Mm,
teachers need to be mentally healthy. Their well-being
yeah.
is key to their
Very.
delivery, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
important. Just like what Chidima said, I was in a program yesterday. I actually had a parent scoop event yesterday, and a parent wanted to see me, and her concern was that she feels her child is beginning to play too much. She feels her child needs to have, what they do in most of the schools, where they do 1 year ahead. You're in year four, you're doing year
Yeah.
five. You're in
Yes.
year five,
Yes. We are
that,
doing
so
year
yeah,
six.
so
Yeah.
year six grade. So she wants that for her child, and there's a lot of pressure on that child. And I was asking her some questions, and I got to
Mm-hmm.
know, that in the child's formal school, they don't go out for play. They stay in the classroom. They have their meals in the classroom. They don't go out. The school owners don't want anybody to have to hurt her knees, or play is part of growing up. How could you keep children? That is also traumatic. You keep a child
Yes.
in a place from morning to evening, from morning to afternoon, and after you do extra tuition, and the child is still is sitting down in one place, in one environment till the end of the school day.
Hmm.
How would that how
Impact.
do you think that would be teacher? It was compulsory. It was compulsory. You don't sometimes teachers don't even. In fact, I was talking to a teacher, she said to me, I take home my spoiled meal, as in my lunch
Wow.
spoiled every day,
Wow.
almost every day.
Wow.
So she comes to school with her meal and she takes it back. And by the time she gets
Hmm.
back, the food would have gone sour. And that is the situation of most teachers. Why?
Yeah.
Because they don't get to have a break. There is no time for them to relax. There's no time for them to have a break. And it's a terrible situation. And if you're listening to us today, you're a school owner, try and see how you can be able to work around it so that your teachers can have a little break in the day. They need
Yes.
nobody. It's not good for their mental well-being. And if they're not mentally healthy, it will impact upon on
Yeah.
the children that they take care of. So it's very, very key and very
Very
important.
keen.
Now, very
Yes.
quickly, before we go to what are the strategies, how can we manage stress, and what are the strategies to help us, so that this will not become a huge problem. Before we go over that, what is advice to parents? Some parents too are going through a lot of traumatic experiences, and that affects how the children's well-being, the children in their care. What is a quick advice to parents in taking care of their well-being as parents too?
Okay, so for parents, it's whatever flies for the parents also would to a large extent will go for the teachers. What I would always want to say first and foremost is our thoughts, our minds, what we fill our thoughts with. Because to a large extent, what we think affects what we do affects how we feel. So our
Affecting
thoughts are
few,
things,
yeah.
yes. It's just like a cycle. It affects. And how can you ensure that what you are thinking? I always say to people, be careful what you hear. Be careful what you hear. We are in the time of the pandemic now. And remember when last year during the pandemic, all of us became research people. So we're constantly taking the news. Oh, 2,000 people have been infected, 100 people here. And those things were affecting us mentally. And without knowing it, when a parent is under pressure or is anxious, it affects the children. So be careful what you hear. Be careful the people with whom you stay with. There are people that are very negative people.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say to them, see, the vaccines are coming out and we are hopeful, they will say to you, what vaccine? Vaccine that is killing so and so people. And you are just constant. In fact, where everybody is going to go under. Be careful the people with whom you stay. And there are simple things we can do, aside the fact that we're talking about being careful what you hear. Like we would advise, if you are prone to being anxious, do not listen to the news 2 hours before you go to bed. You are not a medical doctor. Except you're a medical doctor, then you need all the details of the people dying from the pandemic. If you're not a medical doctor, please, you don't need those details to help your mental health. Then when you find yourself getting like anxious or panic attack, there are simple things we can do. We always say take a deep breath and count to maybe 10 or 20. It even helps you when you are angry or you're about to, you find yourself, panicking. Then we have to learn to relax. In a place like Nigeria, we think that relaxation is a sin. So we have been so wired by the things we hear about rest and relaxation that
We hear.
especially those of us who are mothers and women, we have been so wired, maybe from the things we heard our parents do or from the things society just expects from us. So most times when you are resting, you start feeling guilty. You just say things like, hey, this time I'm using to rest. I should have been using it to do something important. But we need to know
Important.
that rest is important. If you do not get enough rest, you will be an irritable mom, an irritable teacher, an irritable wife, an irritable everything. So we need that rest. We need relaxation. Relaxation is finding out what are the things you love to do. For some people, it's watching a movie. Some is listening to music. Some is nature. In fact, nature is one of the best things for being
Very true. Very true. You need to play.
Vivi, can you hear
You
me?
need to also play. Yes, I
I
can
don't
hear.
know
Yes,
if
you're
if you
back
can
now.
hear me.
And I'm just saying to them, I said, you need to play. I was saying to them that you need to play. Some people
So
think
the
that adults don't
oxygen,
play. You need to play, you need to relax. So I think, uh, hi Chidema, you see there. So the thing is this. So you see, I was just saying to, Chidema said it there that you need to relax, you need to find a way to exercise, you need to play. It's important to learn to play.
can you
Some
hear me,
people
Vivi?
think
Even though I
that
can't hear,
children should not, that they
goodness,
can play,
the reality
they
of
shouldn't
our
play,
play.
but you need to learn to play. You also need to learn to tell yourself some positive things. Give yourself positive affirmation. Very
Mm.
important. Look at, talk to yourself. Talk to yourself and say some nice things about yourself. Talk to yourself and affirm yourself. Finally, I also think what is important is that you also talk about it. Talk about it. If you're going through some mental issues, talk about it. If something is becoming a stress to you, talk about it. Don't keep it to yourself. Never keep it to yourself. Talk about it. If you can talk to a friend, very good. If you don't have a friend to talk to, you can also see a specialist and talk to a specialist. So it's very important. As we round up today, I'm going to be asking Chidima, to tell us our final word to us, because we have finally come to the end of our program.
Yeah.
She's going to just give us what's the take home. What will you be saying? What will be your
Okay,
final
so
word, Chidima,
so my
to
final word would be to the teachers, the
our
parents out there,
listeners today?
okay,
Hear
as
me,
long
Chidima.
as you are,
Those listening
yes,
minutes
yes, I
left
can
for
hear you. Yes. As long as you are
yeah.
dealing with a child,
Okay.
whether you are a teacher or a parent or a caregiver, whatever it is important that you take care of your mental health so that you can help the child. You can help nurture the child in the right way. And I'm still saying to us that even for our children, to help them, please let us create that environment where our children can actually come to talk to us about how they are feeling without any fears, because that is where it starts from. And then let us be attentive to notice if we see any changes in behavior or mood so that we can begin to address quickly. So that would be my advice.
It's been nice having you. So take care of
Thank
yourself.
you.
That's the word. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of your well-being. Take care of you know at your workplace. Try and find time for rest at least. Take a break. You need it because you need to be
Yes.
mentally healthy to take care of the well-being
Hmm.
of our children. So thank you for
Yeah.
joining us today, and we hope to have you next same time next week. I'm gonna leave you with this video, but see you next week, same time, 7 o'clock. And again, I want to say a huge thank you to Chidi Magakalam for joining us, a mental health specialist, a facilitator. If you go to my profile or you go to the Parent School Partnership page, you will read about her and you can know how to contact her. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you
Bye.
so much. So I'll leave you with this video again. There's a lot to get from it.
Teachers play a huge role in shaping children's lives, academically, socially, and emotionally. But teaching is known as one of the most stressful occupations. And this high stress is causing teachers to burn out, disengage, and become dissatisfied with their jobs and cause more turnover than ever. Studies estimate that between 30 and 40% of teachers will leave the profession by their 5th year. Teacher stress and turnover hurt students, schools, and communities, resulting in problems such as low student achievement in math and language arts, disrupted relationships between teachers, students, and parents, and costs to the system that exceed $7.3 billion a year. So what causes teacher stress in the first place? Many teachers are reporting that job satisfaction is at an all-time low. The pressure of high-stakes testing and managing difficult students have dramatically increased the cognitive and emotional demands of teachers, leaving them feeling overwhelmed. Teachers cite they often lack effective, inclusive leadership, and they feel powerless because they don't have much say in how the school is run. But there is hope. Some changes are being introduced that have been proven to help teachers. Mindfulness programs can help teachers manage emotions and find joy in teaching. Mentoring programs can help new teachers reduce stress and raise retention, which improves classroom instruction. Workplace wellness programs can improve teacher health, lower medical costs, and reduce absenteeism. Social and emotional learning programs for students can reduce teacher burnout and increase their satisfaction. Unfortunately, not enough schools offer these scientifically proven programs. It's time for school, district, state, and federal leaders to work toward healthier school environments for all children. This requires organizational change, not only to protect the well-being of teachers, but also to improve educational outcomes for students. To learn more, visit us online